Ladies and gentlemen, you are watching India HR Live, where change agents transform the world of HR. And as you all know, we have been known for broadcasting panel discussions and insightful interviews with industry experts across the globe. But there is a small difference in that regard. Today, we are going to do an open debate, the first ever open debate at India HR Live in association with Key Resourcing, where our partners were our friends at Key Resourcing, Yusuf Pathan, and other folks are helping us in doing this show. So this is a collaborative effort, so just to be clear on that. And today we have wonderful panelists lined up to talk more about or to take you know, the stories behind the veil, what is happening in the real HR and recruitment industry. So stay tuned for that. We have two groups, 3 HR folks and 3 recruiters, the seasoned recruiters and HR experts right there in front of you to have a debate on quality of hire. Is it HR's KPI or Recruiters KPI? So without further ado, let's meet them. We have Derek Siller. Hi, Derek.
Hello.
Hi. He is the Senior IT Corporate Recruiter at Advanced Resources Technologies. Derek, glad to have you here on the show.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Right. And on the recruiter team, we have, okay, who is there? Satya Reddy. He's the recruiter and sourcing evangelist at Ionidia, right? Did I pronounce it correctly?
It's Ion Idea.
Ion Idea. Oh, all right. Sorry for that.
No problem.
All right. And we have Masur Singh. He is the sourcing lead, the India Service Management at Future Step. Masur, welcome to the show. I guess you are on mute. Masur. We are not able to.
Yes, I am back. I was on mute. Now I'm back. Hi everyone.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And so let's meet our HR pros. We have Rajendra Rao, GM HR, Talent Acquisition at WNS Global Service. Mr. Rajendra, welcome to the show.
Hi, thanks Nisha. Thanks for the opportunity to come and participate here. Thank you very much. Hi everyone.
Great. And one of my favorite friends of mine over here from United States, Janine Stewart, she's the Chief Innovation Officer for Talent Think Innovation. Janine, welcome to the show.
Hi, everybody.
Right. And last but not least, in the HR group, we have Bhaskar Bhattacharya, AVP CHR, Hindalco Industries Limited. Hi, Bhaskar. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Hi, everyone. Looking forward to the great debate.
Well, thank you so much to all of our panelists who have joined here to have a wonderful debate on HR versus recruiter. So a little bit heads up and a little bit rules out there. We have 5 questions which we have posted on our promo blog, which hope you might have received it. So we will debate on that particular topic in every 5 minutes, and every guest will get at least 2 minutes to share their statements. And on the Twitter stream, we have our team member, Kunjal Kabdar, is moderating the Twitter discussions. I know some of the folks who are not able to join and watch the live show and really wanted to participate in the Twitter stream. So we thought like, okay, we need to have them on. So somebody should be there to moderate the Twitter discussion as well. So we have Twitter ninja out there, Kunjal Kamdar. And if you all are watching India HR Live, let us know by taking your selfie and posting it with the hashtag India HR Live, so we will know that you guys are watching right there. So let's move on with our topic of the hour, HR versus recruiters. We all know recruiters, sourcing ninjas out there who are tasked to hunting down the right talent and closing the deal. But we all know HR, who is more about finding the right fit, finding a culture fit, and protecting the company from any potential damage of making a wrong hire. We all know that. But there are a little more clashes here and there when we interact with recruiters or recruiters interact with HR. So let's find out why our recruiters dislike. I'm not saying the word hate because it's too strong. So why our recruiters hate HR? So Derek, I wanted to start with Derek, Satya, and Masur. I wanted to start with you guys, and after that, we will hear from our counterparts, Rajendra, Janine, and Bhaskar. Derek, you have the mic. Derek, you're on mute.
Sorry about that.
No problem.
Yeah, I don't think hate is the right word.
Yeah.
An intense dislike might be a better word for it. The problem really is that sometimes we have to think outside the box. We have to bring people in that may not necessarily be that culture fit that HR is concerned about. Sometimes it's better to break that mold. If a person can do the job and do it well, then I think that we as a corporate culture need to kind of accept that person a little bit and stop looking for just the perfect fit, because there is no such thing as a perfect fit for any particular role. I mean, that's just my general feeling.
Satya, how about you? What do you say? Why do you dislike, if at all? Why do you dislike a
See, I do not say dislike. Reason being, we don't dislike because they are a support function, and we definitely need to collaborate with them and make things rolling out. But I would say there would be a disconnect. Reason being, we find out those purple squirrels, and we get into the company, and they then start kind of looking into the process, and they say the cultural fit for contract positions, it may not work out really well, but for long-term positions, if they can give us those inputs that, okay, this is what we want, and if there is a clarity in the requirement from the project team and the HR team, I think there would not be any disconnect or dislike, as you said.
Right. Let's hear from Masuret, and then we'll move on to the HR first.
First of all, HR guys, everybody has a love and hate relationship with them. Whether it's the appraisal time, the time in, time out, the processes, the structures that are put in for the right reason, but sometimes get unbearable. But from a recruitment perspective, I see recruitment as divided in two aspects. One is an HR function and a recruitment function. In a lot of processes, or in some processes, the recruiter will be doing both the functions. So it is not essentially that it is that a recruiter would dislike an HR or an HR would dislike a recruiter. It's the functions that that play a role which is sometimes contradictory to each other. The challenge with the selection process per se, which is primarily the HR function, lies in the fact that if a recruiter is given a particular brief by the roles and responsibilities sketch given, most of the time it turns out after the interview that it is different from what was asked for. That's where the discomfort lies at times. And at times when in the urge of getting cultural fitment, a lot of candidates get rejected or get denied just because they stay away, or they didn't come well prepared on the interview, they're not wearing the right dress, or possibly they were not enough vocal, they were not able to elaborate. So there are some HR aspects which do not really reflect in the roles and responsibilities that a recruiter goes about searching for. And at the final round, that is the HR round, a lot of candidates getting rejected. That's the frustration comes in. I won't say dislike, but that's the balance that probably will have to strike in the recruitment selection process.
Well,
that's my take.
Yeah, interesting. This is a key point that Monsieur has pointed out right away. There is a disconnect and communication gap between HR and recruiters. So let's hear from HR from their side. What is that some of the things that really pisses off that recruiters are doing? Hey, Mr. Rajendra, I would like to get your take first. What could be some of the reasons that you would dislike a recruiter and you don't want it to work with? When we say recruiters, it can be agency recruiters outside of the organization.
I think it's not a love and hate relation between recruiter and HR. It's a perception in most of the companies, like HR follows the rules while recruiter would love to break them, or HR loves the paperwork, but recruiter are don't like it. So I think there should be a clear communication should go from HR. I'm so this collaborative job between HR and the recruitment function. Normally, they get the generic requirement. When you give them a specific idea what really you need to hire, for which vertical you need to hire, or recruiter should be a part of all the ramp up meetings, all the new project, or what is the new bid their company is going for. Then recruiter will have a collaborative approach along with the HR, and both the teams can work together. But today we see we just pass on the 200 requirements, 100 requirements to the recruitment team, and they just know the skill. They don't know for which client they're hiring for which location, what domain. I think there we need to have a collaborative approach between both the teams, and then we'll have a right kind of people coming in.
Right. So, Janine, what do you say are some of the activities that recruiters out there are doing which you don't agree with?
So I'm a little peculiar in that I've worked as a recruiter in staffing, and I've also worked as a recruiter from a corporate standpoint. I think in staffing, my experience is that they really more concerned about headcount and making money on somebody's head than actually ensuring that the right fit for the company. Whereas for me, if I'm a recruiter in a corporate environment, I feel like you have a better handle on not just aspect, but also making that culture fit. There's definitely a disconnect for sure. I think recruiters have a style and they know how to kind of go about getting the candidate who maybe are so unaware of what it takes to get a person through the door. And so I would agree with a lot of that. There's definitely a disconnect and a communication need.
Well, Janine, in the middle, I think we kind of lost the connectivity and we were not able to hear you. So I wanted to move on with Bhaskar at this point and share what you think are um, some of the jobs or activities or interactions that you really don't or cannot stand with the recruiters.
Nisha and my fellow panelists, I believe that recruiter and HR are two hands, and unless one hand works properly, other hand will not work. And one of the main area where I have experience in my past and in my career is that recruitment tend to work on the target and the number. Like you give them 200 numbers, 150 numbers, 125 numbers. They are more interested and more concerned about fulfilling their targets instead of concentrating and focusing on quality. Like Mr. Rajendra has very well said that the recruiter should involve themselves into the organization strategy, organization plan, organization policies. They should more and more should get themselves aware about the organizational dynamics while recruiting. They should not concentrate only on the quantity part of the recruitment. For me, this is the issue.
So this you're saying from the in-house recruiters as well?
In-house and outside both.
Right. Yeah, that is happening. So this is actually a great segue to our next question, which is the quality of hire aspect. So what is really stopping HR and recruiters in collaborating with each other and make a quality hire? So let's find out from our recruiters first when it comes to what is stopping them from getting a quality hire. Is it an information that they haven't received from the HR folks, or they don't really care about the information at all, but just about closing the deal and then finishing the target and stuff like that? So, Derek, what do you say, or what is stopping you to collaborate with HR, if at all, out there when it comes to making a quality hire?
But one of the top things to collaborate with HR, simple, finding out what the basic qualifications are and making sure that the requirement is a legal requirement in the United States. So for us, it's, I can't put in things that I have to put in things that are tangible. I can't say that, they're a good public speaker. What does that mean? How do I tell you if this person's a good public speaker, but this person is not, or this person's a good writer. So, is there a test? If so, we have to make sure that certain tangible qualities come through. I get that from HR. I really, really do. What concerns me normally is they look at more of a personality, where I'm looking at this person can code, or this person really understands how to build tables and be a good DBA. They may not have a great personality, but that's okay because they're not customer focused. They're not customer facing. When HR is like, well, I'm afraid they're going to do this, or I'm afraid they're going to do that. That's my biggest concern with HR is the fear factor, where I'm just sort of like, let's just we're losing money. This is a billable thing.
Oh yeah, that's true. So HR is actually fear of breaking the rules, but actually fear of more concerned about the compliance, more concerned about. I think they really wanted to protect their company when it comes to making a wrong hire. That may be the that may be the right word to put out there. But Satya, what do you think? Because Derek, he mentioned about the legal requirement, especially when it comes to United States, and I know you are working from India for a US client. So what it is that is stopping you while collaborating with HR, or which is not helping you to do your job?
See, first thing is that clarity. You need to have very clear requirement as to what exactly is the project manager looking for. HRs, see, as Rajendra said, recruiters should know which client, which industry, which project are they working on, how is it going to benefit the organization. So when we initiate that requirement, when we receive the email from HR or the project manager, both of them together, then we would appreciate them giving us more information than just mentioning, okay, good written and oral communication, the normal requirement that we see. But if he needs to interact with US customers, those are US citizens or UK citizens or Australians, then we need to clearly mention what is the kind of communication skill level that we're looking for. And as Derek mentioned, rightly pointed out, we need to know what is the technical level that they are actually looking for. They would mention Java, J2E, Spring, Hibernate, but we need to know at which level are they looking for. Now, Derek said Oracle DBA creating forms and tables, so we would not know till they give us some technical inputs as to what exactly is the requirement. Mentioning creating forms and reports for Oracle DBA, so that's not a big deal. We can find out in the resumes, but when we speak, we should be able to have enough information to explain the candidates that, okay, this is what they're looking for, this is the kind of team size, and we need to tell them, okay, we have kind of, this is the team composition, like we have these seniors, we have 2 architects, so you need to share knowledge with them. We have 1 person leaving the project, so you need to replace that guy. So this is the current skill level of that person who is leaving. So we need to have more and more information as to what exactly is the requirement. And as Bhaskar said, he said you need to know organization dynamics, organization chart, organization policies. If you guys can incorporate that in the requirement sheet that you would send us, or the email that you would send us, or welcome the recruiters and have a detailed discussion as to what exactly is the project, and give us a feel that what exactly is the project and what is the necessity of it, or what is the necessity of the resources, then I think we should be able to meet the requirement of HR, and that gives us a lot of fun, motivation, and creates a lot of enthusiasm that yes, we need to work with them, and we definitely understand the requirement. Then, if we can screen the candidate in 10 parameters, I think the 11th one is not a big deal for us.
That's great. So let's hear from Mazur as well what he thinks, and then we will hear from HR experts on what you guys have already discussed. Mazur, what do you say?
See, I completely agree with Satya said, and what has worked for me in terms of collaborating with HR, and I've had some very nice experiences where collaboration has done wonders. The first is what we get in terms of a requirement is something which is written by somebody may not be the real requirement. The role may not be the same. As Satya mentioned, somebody's left. So somebody's trying to get somebody who's exactly the same. May not be what is required to get the job done. So there the HR has to put foot down and say, okay, this is what you require to get the job done. So please focus on these skills rather than trying to find out exact replica of the guy who's left. So what has worked well is after we get the requirement from the HR, we get onto a call with the business manager, and here the onus lies on the recruiter more to be able to ask the right questions and gather as much information as required. So that briefing call probably goes to approximately an hour, sometimes half an hour, and that's where when the requirement is captured properly. And again, as I say, even in that 1 hour, we will not be able to capture the requirement correctly because you cannot capture a requirement in one sitting. After that, once the CVs are sent across, the candidates are sent across after screening, ideally a recruiter or sourcer should be attaching a screening note with it, which explains the logic behind selecting that candidate. That gives an idea to the HR also and the business also in terms of on what basis are these candidates getting screened. So if there's a flaw in that logic, that gets corrected by feedback. So what is required now from the HR side is to give proper feedback. One-liners or a couple of sentences technically no good, not good at all, will not fit the culture. So there's one cryptic one-liners do not help anybody. You need detailed feedback. So the recruiter, the HR needs to spend time on giving feedback also on the candidates submit, especially at the initial stage. That's helped more. So if that comes in, then the revision of the sourcing as well as in terms of the parameters that are being looked at can be taken care of. And that's when the understanding most of the time gets cleared. If it is still not getting cleared, what has worked much better for us is if the recruiter is involved in one of the interviews. Either it's a patched call or either he sits in the interview, whatever works better. That essentially gives a clear picture in terms of on what is exactly the hiring manager is looking for. So recruit an HR, if we can facilitate this coordination with the business, that collaboration will kind of help in getting the right fit and probably increase the quality of candidates big time.
Right, right. So, Masur, Satya, and Derek have equally said that there is a gap between HR and recruiters while communicating and while sharing feedbacks. And even after the candidate is going through an interview or after screening, they are not getting right response from the HR, whether they are going on the right path. So let's hear from the HR folks. So we have Rajendra and Janine and Bhaskar. Mr. Rajendra, because we have seen that HR normally doesn't hire because we go with the rules of hiring managers, right? Because when we get a requirement from the hiring manager, if we are not at all able to hire that person from the in-house with the help of in-house recruiters or in-house talent acquisition team, that's when we hire the third-party recruiters. So what is stopping you when it comes to collaborating with recruiters, third-party recruiters out there, or I can see at some point of time they are directly interacting with the hiring managers when it comes to identifying the requirement in detail. So are you okay with that, or do you agree with that?
Uh, See, there are two part. I mean, recruiter has, normally they have a lot of targets. They are working on the numbers, and HR is taking care of internal people. So as a recruiter, they have to, close the requirement within a specific period of time. So most of the time, they're pushing hiring manager to close the position, if not on primary skills, on a secondary skill. And they push like, if it's not for your project, can we consider for some other project, for a bench, if you're hiring a volume, for vanilla Java or vanilla .NET or vanilla mainframe kind of requirement. But I think when you push people or when you have an issue in quality of hiring, when you're giving more salary to attract the talent, then second part comes to HR where you have internal fitment issue. We have a lot of disparity because of the compensation. You're doing I mean, compensation is the issue. Then you have a role evaluation you are doing. When someone working as a programmer, you're hiring as a project lead because you're not able to fit him in the system, then you are disturbing internal system. So I think in that case, recruiter or third-party recruiter should connect with HR, instead of connecting with the hiring manager, because hiring manager on the pressure, he has to, work on his top line, bottom line, that quarter-on-quarter revenue target which is assigned to him. So instead of that, connect with HR. Let's see if you can groom or you can hire on a secondary skill and train them, within that compensation. If you can get a guy on a board, so you can avoid all that disparity in the system on in terms of compensation, in terms of role, and you'll have a good attrition ratio in the system.
Right. So how about Janine? Janine, I guess you have the audio worked out. So what do you say? What is that really stopping you to collaborate with recruiters when it comes to filling a position? And then are you okay with recruiters getting in your way and interacting with hiring managers?
I'm actually fine with that. I think a lack of that is a problem. There has to be some kind of collaboration whereby the recruiters are having a discussion with hiring managers about what their needs are. Where I come from, there are different ecosystems, there are different personalities, and people want to be very mindful of who they're bringing in, regardless of how qualified they are. So I think it's important for recruiters to have the understanding of what people are walking into so that they can have the right conversations with candidates when that time comes. But if they don't have that insight, they're actually working blind. And so they might get the most qualified person, but that person may not last given other contextual aspects.
Cool. So how about Bhaskar? What do you say? What do you have listened to all the other counterparts, recruiters in HR says, and what do you want to communicate to them?
In practical life, I have seen the basically blame game between the HR and the recruiters.
Mm-hmm.
On the one side, recruiters keep on saying that HR has not explained us the profile in a detailed manner. Vis-a-vis, HR keep on saying that recruiters are in very much hurry. They do not want to understand the profile. Like I would here would like to share one quote by Abraham Lincoln that give me 6 hours to chop a tree, I will spend 4 hours in sharpen the axe. So in recruitment, the more and more time you spend in understanding the profile, the more good quality candidate you can get to the board. So again, it is a joint effort of the HR as well as the recruiter. Another thing I would like to add is that instead of qualitative targets of the recruiters, quantitative targets of the recruiters, these should be qualitative. Though it may not be possible in the hardcore IT industry where the recruitment are in bulk numbers, but still we can have qualitative parameters attached to the targets of the recruiter. So that will also help, and they will also understand that it is not quantity, it is quality which will matter. Because at the end, it is your right people, good quality people who will bring profit to the organization, not the number.
Cool. So let's move on to the next question that we all have seen that recruiters, we HR from our point of time, it is really hard for me to not support HR being an HR pro, but then I'm a moderator and I should not. So it is really so it is really hard to see that at the front end recruiters are making blind promises to the candidates, but when they step into the organization, HR is wondering, oh, where did you hear this from? So this is the real thing that is happening out there. So let's hear from the HR pros at this time for the first time, because last two questions we asked to our recruiters for the first time. So Mr. Rajendra, are you okay with that when recruiters are giving blind promises to candidates and giving a different picture of what the job requirement exactly is?
Um to me, I don't know whether I should talk as a recruiter or as a HR, because there are two things, when you hire people in today's world, people will join, after 2 months or 3 months. India, we have, companies are very rigid nowadays with a notice period. So the once the candidate join after 3 months, by that time you already staff that positions. So you don't
Mm-hmm.
know that person will go for which project now. So when you hire him, you tell him, boss, you will be based off this location, you will be working in this vertical on this project on this technology. But by the time after 3 months, 2 months, the guy is coming on board, the position is already staffed. So
So,
I think the only solution what I can see here is proper resource planning and a lot of fake commitments, like when recruiter are doing, like this on-site opportunity or a location or a technology assignment, or I will assign you to this particular project. This project is has a lot of on-site opportunity, but there's nothing in his hand. It's a resource management function who will do that allocation. So there are things are happening, but once you have a right resource plan, then you'll be able to handle this situation, I think.
that's interesting. So let's hear from Janine and Bhaskar, and then I know Satya is waiting to get his turn right there. So, Janine, you take your turn and share your thoughts.
So I don't think that there's any room for empty promises. I don't think in this climate now where candidates are far more vociferous than they've been in the past, that there's time for you to tell them things that they're not going to ultimately be able to get when they're in that job. So I think certainly if you're looking at retention, if your recruiters have an eye on retention as well as attraction, then they're wanting to give the most truthful account of how things are going to be in that company. And so, as a recruiter with my recruiter hat on and as an HR person, I think it's best to help what they're getting themselves into, and if they decide they'll take it, and when they get in there, they're not shocked 6 months down the line that the job is something that they weren't expecting.
Right. So let's hear from Bhaskar. Mr. Bhaskar, what do you say?
Yeah.
Why recruiters are there making blind promises to the candidates? What do you
Because
think?
again, like in continuation, my earlier 2 points, as they are in pressure of fulfilling their targets. So that is one of the issues that they are showing moon to almost all the candidates, that you are joining the best of the organization in the in the either in the country or in the specific region or in the continent. Secondly, from HR perspective also, we should be clear, and we should clearly communicate to our recruiters that what all need to be communicated to and promised to these candidates. Specifically, like I am from manufacturing sector, we clearly told our recruiters that you should communicate the job description and the KRS, broad-based KRS, uh, once the candidate is shortlisted. So from the day one, before getting the offer, he is clear what is expected out of him. Further, all the facility we are trying to show to the candidate. Like in our cases, in all my past organizations, my units are in remote locations. So we ensure and we told recruiters that you can ask candidate that he can, along with his wife and his children, he can visit our location and see the location, how far it is, how remote it is. Because upon joining, he should not find any surprises in the location. So that
Right.
is from HR perspective, we should ensure all those things. There should not be any surprise for the candidate upon joining.
All right. So HR, they share their perspective. So let's hear from recruiters. Satya, you have the mic. So go ahead.
All right, I've been waiting. You got me. All right. Now Bhaskar and Rajesh, they kind of made two statements that recruiters usually play a quantity game. So first of all, HRs or the technical teams, they need to understand that recruiters are not supporting only one project or one requirement. In an organization, you have 10 projects running, and obviously we are bombarded with 10 kind of requirements, different requirements. And information is not clear, we do not know what to focus on. So when HRs or the technical panel members, they take that initiative, come to us and say, okay, boys, this is the requirement, this is what I want, this is what I want you to focus on. then I think we should be able to prioritize more. So there should be a prioritizing mechanism that should be in place in any organization where HRs and the recruiters would have an open house meeting and say, okay, this is the priority that I have. So you have a scorecard basically in an organization where you say, okay, project one, this scores on this 10 parameters, this would score 8 points, and this would score 9 points. And then you say, based on our discussion, this is the priority that we have. So as Rajendra said, so when they have the resource planning team, so we go collaborate with the resource planning team, which is part of HR, and say, resource planning team or the HR, this is the priority. Can you please ask your panel members or the technical teams, prioritize this again for us so that we focus on the most important requirement than the most urgent requirement. And Rajendra said we need to have people coming in within short span of time. This works with us. We would not be ready to let anybody go in 2 months. When you have project deliverables, you are not ready to relieve the guy, and so do the other companies. So it goes. I mean, it is a constant effort that we make, and we need to be proactive in releasing the requirement that say, okay, I foresee that one of my employees would leave the organization based on the team meetings that I have or the performance reviews that I had. I'm not able to meet his requirement, or he's not meeting my requirement. So I want a resource in next 45 days, and he has not yet resigned. So you are really safe that you have a strong pipeline built who would be ready to join in a week or two as soon as the guy is out, so that you'll have enough time to transfer the knowledge so that your project deliverables are not hit.
All right,
And
Satya,
you said,
I'm sorry, I need to stop you right there because we need to give
please.
time to everyone. So I'm going to turn the mic
Sure.
to Mike. I'm sorry,
No
Derek.
problem.
Please go ahead with your thought. Why do you think that HR is blaming recruiters, saying that recruiters are giving blind promises to candidates? What can be the reasons, or what could be the reasons?
Well, probably the main reason is it's easy to blame recruiting. When we do well, HR looks great. When we do bad, recruiting looks bad. But HR never looks bad. It's not a hidden factor. It's kind of the way it is. The way it is. I mean, if I work for the third-party recruiter and I find out they're lying to the candidate, I'm going to pretty much figure that out as an internal recruiter by asking the questions that I'm asking and give them the real scoop. If a recruiter is lying and giving false positives about a company, then that's the recruiter's fault, and that person should probably be let go. But I don't think that mostly recruiters are going to lie to somebody, because we're brought to time to fill a position. So if you're telling me I got to fill a position in 30 days, I'm going to do what I got to do to fill that position. Is that right? No, I don't agree with it, because I think that we sometimes do a square peg round hole. I do think that we push the limits on certain things because we're forced to do so by HR departments, because they're yelling at us saying we're not getting the positions filled. We're having managers saying, this recruiter's not fulfilling the needs of the manager, and then they get fired. So you become a product of what you are in the environment that you're in. So if you're in a negative environment, you're probably going to be a negative recruiter.
All right. So Masur, you have the mic. So what do you think are some of the thoughts that you wanted to respond to our panelists?
Firstly, I agree with Derek. Any recruiter who's lying about the company, about the job, or about the offsite opportunity should not be there in the system, should be dealt with harshly. I've run a lot of recruitment teams. Any such case brought to our notice, the recruiter is kind of taken to case. Should not happen. There's no reason for a recruiter to lie to find candidates or to get them onto the table, no matter what the time limit or no matter what the constraint, no matter how many requirements we are working on. There's no reason to lie. And end of the day, a recruiter, basically a good recruiter relies on his network. And if the company, if a candidate realizes that he is lying, then his network is not really going to be with him for long. So first of all, a recruiter should not lie. Now, what should happen essentially to kind of make sure that the challenges that a recruiter face goes away? If it's a short notice requirement where the candidate has to join quickly, the HR should get deviation on the salary grid. That will be required. There will be joining bonuses. There will be notice period buyouts. So there will be situations where a little bit of cash will have to be put onto the table. Secondly, if there's a situation where the business is demanding a candidate which essentially has multiple sets of requirements at a rate which is not the market rate, then the HR should intervene and say that you will not get this guy at this rate, or the recruiter can produce an MI saying this is what the competitors are paying for this guy, and it should get sorted at that level. I don't see any reason why a recruiter should be lying.
All right. So that's the end of that question. And to a big shout out to our audience. Thank you so much to all of you for tuning in. I know you guys are enjoying the show. I know you guys are supporting the show through all of your tweets. And if you have any questions to our panelists, tweet your questions with the hashtag IndiaHRLive, and we will be able to pull that up. And there is a selfie challenge going on, and I can see a lot of photos that are up and running in our live stream, which is really, really great. And let's move on to the next question. So, does HR think recruiters are well equipped to assess the culture fit of a candidate? So let's hear from HR first, and then we'll move on with the recruiters. Mr. Rajendra, do you think that recruiters have the ability to understand the culture fit and helping you identify the right candidate?
Uh, I think things have changed now. I mean, I worked in last 2, 3 organizations. Initially when I was in Sintel, that time I think 13 years back, there was a lot of challenges, because they're more of number game, paper pushing. But now I see there's a lot of maturity within the recruitment team, and instead of when business pushing people to hire because of the revenue challenge, or they have the revenue targets, but I saw the recruiters are evaluating them on the cultural fitment, on a compensation. So that maturity we have now with the recruitment team. So I guess yes, recruiters are I think capable enough to do that.
Right. So, Janine, what do you think? What have you seen, or some of the experience? Do you think that recruiters have the ability to assess the culture fit for the front end?
I think they definitely have the ability. It's just allowing them that latitude. I don't think it has to do with an inability of recruiters to be able to comprehend, the culture or the ecosystems that reside in different companies. I think companies have limited recruiters in some regard, in terms of what they really want them to focus on. And so when they have them focus on just putting a body in a position, well, they may be less focused then on culture. But if it is a requirement for them to make the right hire versus just kind of circulating bodies, then I think they're going to have an eye for that. So I think we've evolved a lot in recruitment from when I started over 10 years ago. And I think absolutely recruiters are capable if given the latitude to do it.
Right. So, Bhaskar, what do you think? Do you see that the recruiters have the ability to hire for the culture fit?
My experience is totally different. In my experience with the past many organizations where I have worked, the recruiters' understanding of culture, as per me, is not to that extent to what it should be. And again, like their targets, their goals, their objectives were totally different, and their main concern is to get the people on board as per the target, whatever is the target given to them, like 15 days, 30 days, 45 days. That is the main issue. And I have seen candidates failing due to that. I have seen like candidate who have worked for 20 years in one company, 15 years in one company, and have joined our organization due to cultural fit, leaving them in 6 month time, 1 year time, 1.5 year time. So again, I can say that it is the role of HR only to sensitize the recruiters on the cultural aspect, and they should, before, along with handing over the JD and the position profile, they should brief the recruiters and the team of recruiters on the cultural aspect. that what is the culture of our organization, which type of people should fit in our culture, like that.
All right. So let's move to our recruiters and then hear their perspective. What is stopping them to hire for a culture fit, or do they get enough support from the HR pros? So, Derek, you have the mic, and can you share some of the insights and experience that you have gone through? Do you get enough information when it comes to hiring for a culture fit, or do you think HR is very particular is about the culture fit at all?
It's a really good question. I think more of the culture fit is based on the management than it really is even in HR. You know, most of the positions I've recruited for are usually off-site or away from the corporate building itself. So you know, it's the high pressure environment. Can the person handle that? I've actually had to tell managers before. I'm like, out of the 3 candidates that we have, I know you really like candidate X, but I know candidate X is coming from a high pressure environment and hated it, and you're putting them back into yet another, you know, high pressure environment. That person's not going to last. They're going to be gone in 6 months. We're going to go through this whole thing all over again. You know, candidate Z may not be the perfect candidate, which I don't think exists, but a good candidate. But yet they handle a high pressure environment. They thrive in that. So therefore, they're going to stay longer. That's what HR is looking for. They, you know, the turnover for HR is where their biggest issue is always going to be. It's an expensive thing in turnover. You know, if somebody stays for a year, you basically break even on that candidate. If they leave after 6 months, it just costs you a boatload of money because you really didn't get anything out of the person. They cost money from insurance standpoints and from all these other different issues, and you didn't really get a whole lot of money value add. So I honestly believe that that's one aspect from HR that really isn't they can't really deal with. They do have the company culture kind of situation where they want everyone to be kind of like robotic maybe in their own thought process. That's based upon who's more important in the company. Is HR more important or your hiring manager is more important? And that's a company issue.
That debate is actually going on right there. But let's move to Janine and hear from her. But before I give the mic to Janine, I wanted to share this question on our Twitter stream, which is from Sarang Rami. He is the talent acquisition leader at Capgemini, and he is asking, how do you put culture fit in JD? I mean, in job description. So, Janine, do you see that recruiters out there are really looking for job description job description from you, and if so, how do you really put that in a job description?
I'll have to say it's quite difficult to a point that Derek made earlier. I mean, I've worked largely in federal contractor companies, and with that, you have to have something tangible, something that you can actually evaluate. It gets pretty difficult to evaluate those things in a way that's valid to the actual job requirements. You know, obviously, I've also seen assessments be involved in the hiring process. So, you know, there's a lot of use of 360s now, and these kinds of assessments to assess whether a person is actually the right culture fit based on competencies that HR has come up with. They're helpful in some regard in giving you an idea of who you're receiving for a position, but not too often do they actually correlate with what you're looking for, and so they can be problematic if you don't know how to tie it directly.
Great. So Satya and Masur, we didn't get your takes on, do you think that you have the ability to hire for the culture fit, and if so, what are you lacking? What informations are you lacking from HR pros? Satya.
Yeah, I think we are definitely well equipped. Reason being, one thing that HRs need to understand is that we not only speak to current employees. When we get the requirement, we get into the market, we also speak to the ex-employees. So we definitely understand where is the disconnect and what actually is happening inside the company when the employee was within the project. So we know what was happening and we pass that feedback along the line to the hiring managers, HR, and everybody. So I think we have the information, enough information with us. But from HR standpoint, I think we need to have them collaborate with the hiring managers or the project managers and foresee the situation. Now the culture is different and the organizational culture is different from the team's culture. The team would have enough deliverables, they have faster deadlines, so it would not be tangent with the organizational culture. They'll be working additional hours, they'll be working on different things, high pressure, but not in the organization but within the team. So I think they need to put that across in the job description or in the discussions that we have with the recruiting team. Then I think we should be able to better find the right purple squirrel.
Right. So on our Twitter stream, um, I've got this uh, comment from who is this? Okay, Parak Shaktri, and he is saying candidates joining organization living with short span of time due to culture fit. How does he got hired? Who compromised? So Mansoor, you have the last turn to answer this thought of who really is responsible and giving a closure, saying that that candidate is going to be a culture fit or not. Is it recruiters or HR or is it hiring managers? What do you see?
See, first thing is that is the organization really serious about getting a cultural fit? If the organization is really serious, an interview does not suffice. There are tools, psychometric tools, etc., which will give you a much clearer understanding of the cultural fitment than an interview would. Now, we have so we everybody in as a recruiter, I don't think is equipped to do a cultural fitment because we are not trained to do a proper cultural fitment, and that is never part of the brief. What we could definitely gauge is based on the inputs given that we need somebody who is willing to work in a lively environment, fast-paced environment. So that is piece of information that could be checked. But a recruiter at his level will not really be able to get an entire picture of what is the exact cultural fitment a company is requiring. Though in mid to senior level hiring, that becomes very critical. That's where the briefing call, the understanding comes in, where we capture what is the cultural fitment required. And then we have tools like Interview Architect, which is used in Feature Step, where we actually go about doing 1.5 hour interviews. Now, in a fast-paced environment, if it's an IT requirement where I have to churn at least 10 resumes per day, I cannot do that 1.5 hour interview with the candidate. Neither the
Right.
candidate will have the patience, nor
Mhm.
will the recruiter be equipped to take those many rounds of interviews, that level of in-depth interview for every requirement. So,
Or
I believe cultural fitment is an HR perspective best left with HR. Initial fitment, basic fitment in terms of whatever is given to the recruiter can be done,
so
but
you meant
training is required.
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So you meant to say that you have no role when it comes to being a friend-end recruiter and identifying that candidate is going to be a culture fit for your client or not.
It depends. That's why I said in some requirements where we have the mandate from the business and the HR that you have to do the cultural fitment, it is done. But on an ongoing requirement, let's say if I am submitting 10 CVs per day or 15 CVs per day, that is not possible. Those are mid to senior level requirements where the interviews go prolonged to at least an hour. The interview architect, the detailed level of interviews that have to be done, and they have to be specially trained, the recruiters, take that kind of an in-depth interview. So
All
in
right.
some cases where the mandate is there, recruiter can do, but with training.
All right.
Majority of the
So
cases it doesn't happen.
all right, so Masur is saying there is a lack of training for the recruiters when it comes to how to identify the culture fit or not. But there is an interesting question from our Twitter stream. we have Animal who has joined us, which I'm really, really happy to see because he is one of the top leader out there. He is one of the top leader out there when it comes to recruiting, sourcing, and anything on talent acquisition. And I want to give a big shout out to his radio show, Animal Recruiting Show. Please have a look out for that. There's a ton of information that you can learn from. So the question is to Satya and Durek, and he is saying culture fit is a nonsense. No one gives a recruiter no one gives a recruiter a detailed description of culture. So, Derek, what do you wanted to share? Do you wanted to share some of your insights and experience while working with some of your clients and getting a GD, I mean, job description, which doesn't allow you to get a sneak peek to the culture of the organization, but you have done your effort in identifying by probably searching their website and stuff like that.
I responded to Animal online. So there's two types of recruiters. There's a third-party recruiter and an internal recruiter. If an internal recruiter doesn't know the culture of the company they're working for, then they're probably brain dead. They should absolutely, positively know who they're working for and what the culture is. That's just BS. If they're a third-party recruiter, then if you're doing your due diligence, then you should be doing a site visit with your client. You should find out what the culture of the company is, and when you walk in, you pretty much know. And if you walk into Google, people are hanging out with jeans and T-shirts, so you know it's probably more of a relaxed environment. If you go to a Booz Allen or an Accenture, everybody looks the same. They all have a blue suit on with a white shirt and a red tie. So obviously it's a more conservative environment. You can figure these things out pretty quickly. From that point of view, that's what I see as a culture. Now, what happens on a day-to-day basis, do you know about that? Probably not, because you're not working side by side with these people. But from a general standpoint, you kind of know if you're going to go work for a tax attorney, they're not going to be hanging out in Birkenstocks. They're going to be in very nice, $500 suits. They're going to be wearing nice shoes. And if a candidate comes in and they have long hair and it's blue and a nose ring, they're probably not going to be a really good fit for that particular culture. It's not somebody you would probably want to send. So yeah, is it in an ad? No, but that's what we hired. That's what people hire us to do. Is we find the people that are going to be the best fit for the company and the culture. Blah blah blah.
Great. So this is actually an interesting conversation which on Twitter, some of the recruiters are really, really seeing culture fit as something, as you said, which is not aware of at all. So this is an interesting perspective that I can see on Twitter as well. But with the time constraints, and we are running out of time at this point, I really need to move on to the next question. Satya, I hope you would agree with that. So our last question of the hour is, who has more control over retaining the talent? So let's ask our recruiters first and then move on to HR. Satya, you have the mic.
See, retention, definitely HR. HR and also the project management team or the hiring managers, we say, we promise them something, and whatever we promise is what the information that we got from the technical panel and HR. So it is now in their hands to retain the talent, live up to the expectations, live up to what we have promised. And we have promised them what they have said. So I think it is the responsibility of HR and the project team. Do not try to find out quick fixes where you just say this should be done and this is done. So just hold on to your guns. Take a moment to speak to the employees and see what they are going through or what is the counter offer that they got. So sort it out. I mean, who wants to be bad? Who wants to leave the organization? Everybody wants a soft cushion. So it's in the HR and the technical panel.
Right. Masur, you have the mic.
Retention per se, just trying a dipstick before coming in, around 5% of the candidates generally would leave in the first 6 months or so, 95% after that. So anybody who's stuck with the organization in the first 6 months and not being retained is definitely an HR challenge. I would still give a little bit of, because in let's say in a couple of companies, a lot of companies, big companies, the HR interview is not really done by the HR. They initially say it's an HR function, but not done by the HR, it's done by the recruiter. So in that sense, the recruiter should pick up the responsibility of being able to hire the right guys. And that's where the first 6 month attrition should essentially reflect on, but that's approximately 5%. And that's where when the false promises were given, when the role promised was not provided, those aspects will come into the picture. So uh, it is primarily an HR domain, but whoever plays the HR function at whatever time, whether it's the HR manager himself or it's the business manager or it's the recruiter, has to kind of take responsibility for it. But I guess primarily the overall responsibility should lie under the HR function person.
All right. So, Derek, what's your take?
Wow. I don't know. I
I
don't really.
know.
I don't know what. Give me the question again, I guess.
I know you have been on the Twitter stream, and then it is a little distracting at this point because a lot of conversations are happening, which is really, really interesting. So
I
we were
know.
talking about, yeah, so we were talking about who has more control over retaining a talent. Is it at the recruiter side who are at the front end and who has the ability to hire the right candidate who is the culture fit, or is it the HR after the interview, candidate is getting on board and letting him, mash up with the culture of the organization? What do you think? Is it the
It's definitely gonna be the HR. You know, because candidate retention happens well after the candidate has started. So therefore, I mean, my day basically ends when the candidate signs the offer letter. I'm pretty much officially just moving on to the next requirement that I'm trying to fill. HR, at that point, is that what they're basically hired to do, is to be kind of the intermediary between the company and the employee. They're not supposed to side with one or the other. They're supposed to be the intermediary. A lot of companies, unfortunately, however, have used HR as a buffer to protect themselves, so that HR is really more about management than they are about the actual employee. They only look at the employee by what legally they have to do, and a lot of times where they're protecting the company from being sued because of bad management. So really, HR kind of does get put in a very odd area in that respect. So if the management is bad, if your hiring manager is bad, or for example, I've had a friend of mine, this happened to them. His hiring manager that he was hired to, that hired him to his position, was transferred to England.
Mm-hmm.
The new manager came in and after about 3 weeks fired him.
Oh.
So it's sort of like, it's a right to work state in Virginia, so they didn't really have to give them even just cause as to why they let him go. So HR doesn't really have a whole lot of control over that. If a hiring manager says, I'm firing the guy because I'm firing the guy, HR just kind of has to figure out a way to make sure that that person doesn't sue them. And that's pretty much where HR has been put, in my opinion, for the last few years. And it's really kind of a shame. So
It is.
how is that as a recruiter? As a recruiter, I recruited this person for my manager here, and that manager goes away and a new manager comes in. How is that my fault?
All right, this is hilarious. This is an interesting experience that you have shared right now. And in fact, while we move on to the HR pros, I know we are running out of time, but let's wrap up after hearing from the HR pros what they think. But before that, I have an interesting comment on our Twitter stream, which is from Sarang again. Sarang Brahmi. He is saying most of the people leave their managers. So how come it is the KRA of HR? So let's hear from our HR pros. Mr. Rajendran, what do you say is the retention strategies is in the bucket of HR or recruiter? Do you think recruiter has a role when it comes to identifying and helping you find out a candidate with a culture fit?
Absolutely. So, Nisha, I think what the recruiter should own attrition, or maybe initial 6 months. It should be a recruiter's KRA. Post 6 months, it's HR and obviously a hiring manager.
So
Again,
I'm sorry
I would.
I'm sorry to interrupt you right there. So you meant to say that the retention starts right there at the front end while you are going to identify the candidates. Is that so?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking on the cultural fitment, and say a lot of people said, how can recruiter are made responsible for cultural fitment? I mean, if recruiter don't understand, internal culture, then he should not be a part of recruitment, as Derek said. So he should understand what his company is. I mean, the moment candidate open his mouth, any recruiter immediately think in his mind, yes, he is the guy. I think he'll fit in our culture. And many times we tell our colleague also, this guy will leave company in 2 months. He will not fit. The company is very aggressive. So I think the cultural fitment obviously is a recruiter's care and recruiters evaluate on. If he's not able to, he should, his learning academy or his learning development team should have a training on this, this skill.
Interesting. So, Janine, I know as in you are as an HR pro and you worked as a recruiter as well. So it would be it would be really fascinating to hear your take on the retention strategies. So, what do you think? Do you think recruiters has a role at the front end when it comes to contributing to the retention strategies?
I absolutely think they have a role in the strategy. I mean, the retention strategy itself lies with HR, so that's developed at that end. But I think that recruiters have a pulse and a finger on certain things that they should be able to lend themselves to the conversation, the larger conversation of retention strategy, especially when you start talking about talent acquisition and being a specialist in that function. Tend to have the same hiring managers work with the same people, the same functions in the same industry. So you tend to have a pulse on which hiring manager has large turnover. And so you should be having those discussions with HR about what some of the issues you're seeing from your end as far as being able to retain candidates. I think it's fair to put that onus on the recruiter from that standpoint. But the larger strategy obviously has to be held in HR. I don't think it can be held with that.
Right. Right. So, Mr. Bhaskar, what do you think, recruiters or HR, who do you think have most control over retaining the talent? Is it the HR folks who has direct line connection with the hiring managers, or is it the recruiters at the front end?
I have a totally different perspective on this, and for the retention, I divide it in three phases. One is immediate to short-term retention, then short to medium-term retention, and medium to long-term retention. For the first phase, it should be the responsibility of the recruiter because he interacted with the candidate for long, for 2-3 round of interviews, maybe for negotiation, maybe for joining related activities. So he got involved with the candidate at personal level. So he is the best person who understands the candidate at the beginning. So he is the best person who influenced the candidate for retention in the immediate to short term. Once he is handed over, join the organization, then it is HR's role to take care of the candidate in terms of various HR systems, processes, learning, development, career aspirations, like that. So then once the candidate got involved in the day-to-day work, he got involved with the team, then it becomes the responsibility of the team manager, the manager who is managing the individual. So in the long term, I firmly believe that the manager is responsible for retaining, and in medium to long term HR, and in immediate to short term it is recruiter.
Right. Well, we're gonna wrap up the show at this point. I know we are already late, and everybody on the Twitter stream, they are really supporting us. And I know our guest, it's daytime in United States, and it's nighttime, private time in India. So you got your life after this in the Agile Live show. So we need to stop it right away. So in the beginning, I know our panelists told me, Nisha, don't conclude, because I know it's a debate, and normally we all know HR and recruiters should collaborate each other, and we love the profession and we love each other. But this is a debate, and as a matter of fact, we are not concluding the show, and it's up to you to decide whether you need to collaborate with HR or recruiters when it comes to make a quality hire and make your career succeed and make the life of a company better. So with that, I'm going to close this panel discussion. And to all of the panelists, thank you so much for being here with us today and letting us host a fantastic conversation, an open debate, an open fight at India HR Live. And look forward to having you again on the show sometime soon.
Thanks,
Right.
Nisha.
Tanisha?
Thanks,
Thanks.
everyone.
Thanks, Tanisha.
All
Thank
right,
you.
everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been subscribed to our India HR Live YouTube channel, don't miss out. Subscribe to our channel. Here it is, and you will be able to watch all of our previous shows and stay tuned to what is coming up on next month. So, bye-bye.